Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to tell you how you can read free books, yes, before publication. Double yes. Let's start by saying that it is not illegal. First of all, very important. And I've read multiple books through this platform, through this method. So no, you don't need to be scared that this is something illegal. It is perfectly legal, perfectly normal, and yes, you can do it too, even if you're not an influencer. As a book lover, we all love getting free books, first of all. And how cool is it to be able to read books before publication date? Books that are given out before publication date are called ARCs, and that stands for Advanced Reader's Copy. And basically publishers or indie authors sometimes give these out to people, and they do that to get more reviews and to get more hype out. For example, they also send ARCs out to booksellers or librarians so that they actually know what the book is about before it comes out and they can recommend the book to people when it comes out. But ARCs are also sent out to reviewers. So people like you and me who like to read books and review them on different platforms such as Goodreads, Fable, other book apps, and Amazon, for example. And the reason they send those out before publication is so that they can collect those reviews before publication, and then when publication release date is finally there, they already have a bunch of reviews or already created a hype on social media or got people talking about their book. And of course, they also send them out to influencers, but they also send out ARCs to normal readers, normal people who don't have a large following. Basically, they want to collect a bunch of reviews from different people, librarians, booksellers, influencers, people without any of those titles, and that the total of those reviews look more genuine and real. But how to get them for free? That is actually where Netgalley comes in. Netgalley is a platform that links booksellers, reviewers, normal people, and influencers to publishers and indie authors. It is sort of like a marketplace where publishers and indie authors can put their book on the platform and the reviewers can basically request that book and the publishers or indie author can approve that or decline it, but hopefully approve it. I have been on Netgalley for a few months now and I think I've gotten about 6 books through this platform. I don't really request that many books. I'm very critical of the books that I request because, of course, you also have to read them. And sometimes I just want to read whatever's on my physical TBR or whatever I come across or whatever I'm in the mood for. So I don't want to have to read multiple books at the same time, so I don't request that many ARCs. But I think in the last probably 6 months, I've gotten around 6 ARCs, and I think I requested 15, maybe a maximum of 20, something like that. So actually pretty good approve rate. I love it. I have actually read a few really good books through Netgalley, some of authors that I already knew or that I had read books by before, or authors that I heard of and wanted to try out anyway. For example, I currently have an ARC outstanding that I haven't read yet, but definitely will, from Candy Steiner, Love Overboard, her newest release. I read a book by K.L. Walter, Katie Holt, the author of Not in My Book. So a few really amazing authors, but I also got to read some ARCs by authors that I've never heard of before, and I got to discover them. And that's what I love about Netgalley. I've been able to discover new authors and try out their books that I maybe wouldn't have picked up otherwise, but since I got to read it as an ARC, I did, and I really liked them. For example, I just read Shadow Trials by Evelyn Hart, which I rated 4.5 stars, a really cool romantasy, and I really liked it. There were also dragons, so love that. If this sounds like something you would want to, I guess it is, otherwise you wouldn't have clicked on this video. You have to make an account on Netgalley, just basically give your name, your email address, and then you're signed up, and that's where the happiness starts, because then you get to request books. But before you do that, I would actually recommend to take the time for your profile and to actually make that a little bit more fun. I think my first requests were before I actually set up my profile, so yes, it did have my name, but that's about it. And I noticed that after I filled in my profile, I got approved more. So yes, it actually benefits you to fill up that profile and to take a little bit of time to do that before you go and request books. So definitely give your name and put in a profile picture, and also write a little description about what you like, what are your hobbies, what genres do you read. If you have a following, even if it's a small following, definitely mention that because it can help. But if you don't have a following, like I said, that is completely fine. But if you do, even if it is like 1,000 Instagram followers mention it because it can help. Something that is very important on Netgalley is your feedback ratio. It is actually on top of your profile, and this is definitely something that publishers or indie authors look at when they go through their requests. Your review ratio basically says how many of the books that you got approved did you give feedback for. So that means that you read and you gave a rating and a review for. They recommend to have that feedback ratio above 80%. So that means for every 5 books that you requested, they recommend you actually review 4 of those. But I would actually recommend to just review all of the books that you requested and got approved, because why not? And why would you otherwise have requested those books if you didn't want to read them? For example, I currently have 7 books approved and I rated 6 out of those. And the 7th I am still planning on reading, so I will definitely review that as well. But my current feedback ratio is 86%. So if I would request more books at this point, so before I read the 7th book, my review ratio would be 86%, and that is actually a really positive, good rating. So that won't be something to decline me over. Be aware that if you request a lot of books and they all get approved, that means that your review or feedback ratio actually lowers until you've actually read and reviewed them. So keep that in mind before you request more books. And so that is also a reason why I don't like to request a large amount of books at the same time. I just pick the ones out that I like and then don't request a few for the next coming weeks before I actually read them, and then I go and request more books. If you've landed up your profile, it is time to request books. And there's one thing that I would recommend you to do if you just start out on Netgalley. So basically, if you start out, your feedback ratio at that point is 0. And yes, publishers can see that you've also got 0 books approved, but obviously a feedback ratio of 0 isn't very attractive for them, and that doesn't want to make publishers approve your request. But there is a way to build that feedback ratio in a different way. There is actually a Read Now category on Netgalley. Books in that Read Now category don't need to get approved. So you can just click Read Now and then you get approved the book immediately, automatically, without having a publisher to having to approve or deny you. The first book that I read and reviewed through Netgalley was actually a book through that Read Now category. I actually didn't know, but I requested a book, or I thought I requested a book, and it instantly got approved. So I was like, oh my god, they're so fast. But apparently it was in the Read Now category. This publisher likes to put books for 24 hours in the Read Now category. Sometimes when they put a new book up on Netgalley, first 24 hours they put it in the Read Now section, and because of that I was able to read that book, which I was really excited about because it was a K.L. Walter book and I really like her books. So when you just start out, definitely go to that category, pick out a book that you like or that sounds good to you, and click Read Now. But I would recommend to not do that for every single book that you're like, maybe I'm going to read this, because they do actually count towards your feedback ratio. And if you are not going to read one of those books, that definitely negatively affects your feedback ratios. So don't go all out and just request every single book you see there, because you do actually have to read them. And that is going to be hard otherwise. Just pick out 1 book at a time, or maybe 2, and go from there and build your feedback ratio every single time, so that once it is actually above 80%, you've done 4 or 5 books, for example, then I would recommend you to go and request books. There's one thing that you have to be aware of when you request books, and that is how you are able to read those books on which platforms. This is a mistake that I myself made in the beginning. I got approved a book and it turned out I couldn't send it to my Kobo e-reader. I used to have a Kobo e-reader, right now I do have a Kindle, but publishers and indie authors that put their book on Netgalley can choose which platforms you can use to read the book. And one of those is sent to your Kobo, so you just have to sign in and the platform automatically sends it to your Kobo e-reader. You can send it to your Kindle as well, or read it in the Netgalley app. But I like to read the ARCs on my Kobo e-reader, the one that I had. And I got approved a book that unfortunately wasn't available to send to my Kobo e-reader. So they hadn't selected that option. And I didn't know that that was a thing. So I couldn't read it on the e-reader that I had. I ended up reading the book on my tablet in the Netgalley app. So that is always an option. But that's not the way I prefer to read books. So maybe if I've known, I wouldn't have requested the books because I don't love the reading experience from reading books on my tablet. And then if you get approved books or declined, you get an email from Netgalley saying either one, you're approved and you can read it now, or you're declined and you cannot read it. Every book has 2 different dates that are very important. First of all, the publishing date, of course. I like to read the books before the publishing date because I know that publishers like to get my review before that date. And the other date that is very important is archive date. This date basically means that specific day the book gets removed from Netgalley. So if you get approved a book, make sure to download it, send it to your Kindle, send it to your Kobo, whatever, before that archive date. If you don't do that, you will not be able to read it. So you can still see the book in your titles, in your list, but you cannot send it to any of your devices or whatever. There is no such thing as a date before you have to review a book or give feedback. You do have a lot of time to do that. There's no deadline for that. But like I said, I think that publishers like it when you give your feedback and review before the publishing date, because that is when it is most valuable to them. And it makes sense, because why else would you request an unpublished book if you not want to read it before publication? But if you're not able to do that, if you can't manage to do that once or every single time, no worry, that doesn't affect you in any way. So that is how you can sign up for free books before publication date, and that is how you can use Netgalley. Like I said earlier, I found an interesting Instagram post from a creator that works in publishing, and she told us what they can see from your profile and what stats they can see from your profile. I'll definitely link that post in the description below if you're interested. With that being said, this is where I'm going to end this video. If you liked watching them, please give me a thumbs up. That would help a lot. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure you do to stay up to date with all of my upcoming videos. And with that being said, I hope to see you very soon in the next video. Bye guys. Doei!